you've got to be carefully taught. There's a notion that's popular in some religious circles and some not religious circles that says human beings are inherently depraved, that's human nature, and that we have to have laws and systems, serious threats and brutal punishments to keep people from doing evil things to each other. There's another notion that's popular in other religious and non-religious circles that says that human beings are pure and innocent at birth, good and kind by nature, and that they are defiled, polluted, damaged, and twisted into being like the rest of us. But that if they could somehow just be raised without messing up their native angelic natures, they'd be amazing and wonderful and save the world. I think both of those are nonsense. Both of them have a crumb of truth to them for the people who want to believe them and hang on to them and shape the world to those views. Anyone who has raised children or participated or even really watched them for a while, watched them interact with each other and with other people, will have seen both kinds of behaviors. Kids who suddenly go out of their way to commit ruthless acts of kindness just because. And also kids being mean and cruel. We are both. We all have the active capacity to be good and kind and to be nasty and mean. It just has to be activated. Some of that is experience. Some of it is the lessons of our culture, the media, what people tell us. Some of it is what our parents teach us. But I think more than anything, it's practice, it's habit, it's well-worn intentions. You have to be carefully taught. It applies early in particular. Kids are easier to teach than adults are generally. Adults re-educate more slowly. We have bad habits. What we learn young really does shape us. There are famous quotations that are attributed, they may not have actually been said by these Jesuits, attributed to St. Ignatius of Loyola or St. Francis Xavier. Different versions of these words. Give me the child, and I will mold the man. Give me the child for 7 years, and I will give you the man. Give me the child until he is 7, and I care not who has him thereafter. Give me the child till the age of 7, and I will show you the man. Of course, these weren't spoken in English, and translation is a dubious thing at best. Those words can be read and heard as either menacing or promising. It depends on your presumptions. But they tell us something about who we are and how we come to be who we are. We have to be carefully taught. Now, it's worth observing that the Jesuits are widely known for their devotion to science and reason and the skills of argumentation, and those are things that Unitarian Universalists generally admire a lot, particularly argument, I think. But like any human and any tool, they can be used for good and evil, or both, sometimes at the same time. That's actually more common. Most people do both good and evil. We Unitarian Universalists have often been inclined to believe, and I think that may be used in this case in the worst sense of the word believe, in the power of intelligence and education. My experience affirms something that I remember my father telling me, which shocked me at the time. There doesn't appear to be any correlation between intelligence and goodness, between education and decency, In fact, perhaps there's a negative correlation. Too many intelligent, educated people are comfortable doing horrific things for that statement to be true. And so many people who don't meet the socially accepted, media-driven notions of what smart is and looks like turn out to be incredibly kind, generous people. The question for us is what we choose to teach ourselves and to our children. Do we practice it? Actually apply it and make it our normal everyday practice? So when the crunch comes, when push comes to shove, do we actually act out of the values that we affirm and the objectives that we share? Or do we just teach abstract principles? Do we teach and affirm goodness and kindness and generosity and celebrate those things and people, regardless of who they are? I've told you before that it's possible in many faith traditions to subscribe to the dogmas, the official beliefs, and go through the motions. For many, that makes them good, whatever that means. That criticism can apply to many people in pretty much every faith tradition. But what does that behavior mean for Unitarian Universalists, a people without a creed, a people without defined dogmas? It cannot be the 7 principles that are in the front of our hymnals. A couple pages in, you can look for them later. Those are the least common denominator of agreed values between our congregations. They are not UU dogma. The bylaws in which they are embedded state that we have to go back and review them every 15 years. Do we still believe those? Do we still agree with them? Do the words need to be changed? Do we need to pull one out, add one? They are not dogma. You can disagree with them. And they're not stated as beliefs. If you look at the words that precede them in the bylaws of the UUA and in our hymnals, you will find that the member congregations agree to affirm and promote those principles. It doesn't say that we agree to believe them. It says we agree to affirm and promote them. They're not for thinking about, they're for acting on. Thinking doesn't cut it. Coming to church and repeating those or subscribing to them doesn't cut it. We agreed as a congregation to affirm and promote them, which is why some of us got so worked up over the legislation before the New Hampshire House about voting rights, because we agreed to affirm and promote democracy in our congregations and in society at large. We are committed to these. We made a solemn promise, a covenant to other congregations to stand up and support, defend, and encourage these things, to foster them, to protect them, to expand them. So the real question for you is, do you do those things? Have you carefully taught yourself them, regardless of whether you can remember the words, because they're not a dogma. You don't need to know this creed. You need to understand those values and live by them. Are you having conversations with each other about what they mean? Because the meanings change as we see the world from different perspectives. Are you having conversations about how we are living them, how we are sharing them, how we are trying to spread those values? Are you working to live them in your own life? Are you working with others to make those values more real and tangible for everyone in this world? Another way of asking this might be, if they come for you, Will there be enough evidence to convict you of actually being a Unitarian Universalist? Have you been carefully taught or re-educated? Most of you came here for re-education, but you chose that. Are there others who you are teaching carefully? Are you actually teaching these values that we agreed to affirm and promote? Are you modeling them? Are you letting people know who you are? Or are you hiding what you are as a religion from the world? And why? What we know is that individuals can and do teach themselves to live by their deepest values. It can be done. We can look at people from Gandhi to King to Mandela and see people who have abandoned ideas that are widespread and popular and cruel and destructive to support and promote ideas and values that are more life-giving and life-affirming. We can be retaught. We can see what a difference that kind of commitment makes to a nation, to the world. We can be such a people. You can be such a person. Regardless of how you were taught, regardless of your impulses, regardless of those dark tattoos that we all get from our culture on the insides of our skulls, regardless of what human nature is or your experience growing up, you can retrain yourself. You can reteach yourself, be taught anew, if you want to. If you're committed to the task, if you want to live your values and see them grow, if you're willing to compile the evidence to convict you of being a Unitarian Universalist. It won't be easy. It may be rather scary, particularly today, but it might also change the world, and I can tell you it will be immensely satisfying to do so. Maybe we should take that risk.